Education and training in the life sciences require that students learn a diversity of skills as well as the traditional knowledge base. Graduates who enter the professions must be familiar with the technology employed in today's laboratories and clinics, and with the design and performance of experiments. Of equal importance is the ability to communicate well with patients, and the sensitivity to appreciate complex ecological systems. Some will also need hands-on experience of animals and animal tissue for their careers. All students of biological science and veterinary and human medicine perform practical work to illustrate knowledge and to gain a number of these skills. Practical work which for some involves dissection and animal experimentation. But the tools and approaches used by teachers are evolving in response to developments in technology and the demands of students and society itself. In this film, we investigate new directions in life science education, sampling classical experiments where conventional animal use has been replaced by a range of progressive, alternative methods.
SimNerve is a simulation of the classical nerve experiment, which is done since many, many years in physiological courses. I contributed to the programming of this sim series. I was responsible for the physiological background, for the physiological correctness of the program. This was some years ago when we had a lot of discussions with students who didn't want to do these experiments with animals. And finally we decided it's no longer possible to do these experiments, and we thought about alternatives. SimNerve consists of 3 parts: wetlands, preparation, and experiments. Wetlands is just for introducing the students into the program. It shows pictures of frogs, and you can also listen to the sound. The second part are video sequences of the preparations of the frog's nerve. The third part is the main part, which presents a lab with all the devices that are necessary to do the experiments with 2 nerves, which I can place in stimulating and recording electrodes, and then can stimulate the nerve and do the experiments as in the real lab. When the students are doing the experiments with the real nerve, they always are anxious that they are doing something wrong and the nerve is destroyed, and they had again to prepare a frog and to use another nerve and so on. And with the simulation program, they really can try to do this, and this is what makes learning by doing and what makes learning more effective. Let's go to a single stimuli to demonstrate a different effect, which also shows one of the main advantages of such a program. You can use this thread to tie off the nerve at every place you want. When you tie off it here between the stimulating and the recording electrodes, the action potential will not reach the recording electrodes, and what happens should be a 0 line without any action potential. And now you can do what you cannot do in the real experiment. You can put the thread away, and the nerve again will respond as before.
Well, on one of these Interniche conferences, there was a demonstration of an early version of the SimNerve program. And I was lucky enough to get a copy of this program. I was allowed to use it before it was, generally sold. So I introduced it to the students and my department, and it was very successful. I mean, everyone liked it because it's a very powerful program.
I myself was very surprised how good it works. In some parts, it might even be better than as a real experiment.
I highly recommend this equipment to universities. Both we teachers and the students are very content with the results.
As soon as you save time, as you have a setup that saves you time, then you will also save money. You can compress your schedule, you can do more experiments in one day, in 1 week, etc. So that's definitely a money-saving aspect in it. BioPack is a sort of combination of measuring equipment with which you can measure a lot of things depending on how you set it up. We use it for the students to measure nerve conduction velocity on themselves. It can also be used to measure various other parameters. It really has a lot of possibilities.
First, we put electrodes on the underarm of students. So we put one at the elbow and one just beneath the hand. And then we stimulate at the elbow and we registrate the evoked nerve impulse just beneath the hand, that electrode. And then we can visualize these nerve impulses on the data screen.
The combination of SimNerve and BioPack has fallen very well out with the students. And they see the advantages with first doing all sort of adjustments, etc., on the SimNerve program, and then they can take that experience with them to the BioPack equipment.
I think the pedagogic value of this equipment is the great advantage.
"170 years ago, where the experiments with the nerve and muscle of frog have started, is a long time, and now is existing high-tech equipments delivering the same quality or better than the same quality without testing or using animals. The myograph describes the interaction between the nerve and muscles and documents the results of this test as an answer to a specified stimulus. The test person must fit his right hand and also must find the position for the EMG connections, the right position for the power sensor, and so on. The next part is to find the right position for the stimuli electrode. On the computer, the menu offers 8 experiments. If you have chosen your experiments, then you can optimize all parameters for a very good experiment in the next step. This experiment works automatic. In the computer program evaluation, you have the possibility to analyze the complete results of all reaction of your body. The results are absolutely identical between biological using for dead frog or human self-test with myograph.
Students like to use the sim muscle program much more than to do the experiments with real nerve muscle preparations. The muscle is arranged principally in the same way as sim nerve. There are 3 different parts. There is again wetlands showing some frogs with some sounds. The second part shows the preparation, beginning in the same way as the preparation of the nerve. With this muscle we are going into the lab, to the practical course, which is the third part and the main part. You have also devices that you need to do the experiments. You have to switch on the devices and then you have to adjust the parameters. You can apply single pulses or double pulses to see the superposition of 2 contractions, and you can apply the trains of pulses to analyze tetanic contractions and so on. There is plasticity in each isolated muscle. We didn't consider this plasticity here. This only occurs in the artificial situation of an isolated preparation, but not in the physiological situation. This disturbs the recording sometimes very seriously, this kind of plasticity. The students are free to try to learn by doing much more than in the real experiment.
One of the advantages is that you can do things in a shorter time. And because you can do things in a shorter time, you can do more. You can concentrate yourself more on the real objectives. In the past, students got confused by the whole equipment, by the setup. We can do it quite easily now with a computer simulation. Microlab has been developed in the 70s already. By the time the students, a number of students refused to do animal experiments. Microlabs is a composition of a number of programs. Here we show the mouse behavior. Here we see the different behaviors, and it is up to the student now to click on the different behaviors and to control later on whether or not this has been done in the right way. So this is a good way to train students in making studies of behavior under normal situations and in situations that they have had special drugs. We can also show the symptoms, pieces of video of behavior of mice, rats, rabbits and other animals. So, for example, you can see the difference between clonic and tonic convulsions. Not a nice picture to look at, but this will not be repeated anymore. Here we see the drugs like strychnine that will cause this effect. So we can look under the substances and demonstrate now the whole sequence of symptoms if you give strychnine to a rat. This is the kind of demonstrations that have been shown to students, I think, until the 60s, and after this we will not show this anymore. There's a kinetic dynamic program integrated in microlabs. What we can do here is make a selection. We use a female adult, and as a route we give an interperitoneal injection. For the dose we have to see what is the weight of the animal, and we look, for example, after 1 minute, observing the motor function. We continue and see after 2 minutes, and it's clear that after 3 minutes already the animal is not moving very spontaneous anymore. So we can continue and see after, say, 5 minutes. Now a student has to decide whether to continue and to wait longer, or maybe to decide to add a new dose. Then there are a number of simulations of isolated tissues like the kynipic ileum and a number of others on muscle preparations, the phrenic nerve, diaphragm preparation and other preparations. And these programs are still written in DOS and can be used on any computer. Soon there will be also a new set of microlabs on Windows, but especially for those countries where they can use the old computers, they can use also the old microlabs. You can do things with this as you can't, what you can't do with a real animal.
The POP trainer is a really simple and easy handling device for simulating operations. The simulation is perfect. You can train, especially the managing of bleedings. You can train as long as you want. No animal will die. Take an organ from the slaughterhouse of an animal, liver for example, or lung, and you put a tube in the main artery of this organ, and this organ will be perfused with colored tap water simulating the blood perfusion, and you put it in the trainer, in the device, and it's a closed system. Therefore, it's very clean, and it simulates the normal blood perfusion in a perfect manner. Therefore, you can all train what you need. You can start the training with working by-handed. You start the dissection of the hilar structures, the artery, vein, and the ureter. And the most challenging problem is in parenchymal operation, a partial resection of the kidney. And there you can use all the modern devices from ultrasound, shears, or high-frequency technology and lasers, all you want, you can use in this device. We can use all organs. Usually we use liver with the gallbladder. We use colon with other bowel specimens, and of course kidneys with the aorta. So that's very nice for us to watch, that the trainees don't want to stop the training even if the time is over.
Digidis is a computer program aimed to simulate a dissection of various animals. It's based on stills, QuickTime VR video and animation. You use it in the computer, cutting up the animal. You get all the organs identified, and in connection to this you will get histology and taxonomy, phylogeny, and so on. So it's much more integrated with other disciplines than the regular teaching is. The different parts that are included in Digidis are, of course, firstly the animals themselves. Right now we are including the rat, the cod, the dogfish, the frog, and the hen. Later on we will also add modules for invertebrates. Then there is a section dealing with the actual techniques and instruments used in dissection. There is also video sequences showing the actual incisions in the animal, and there is QuickTime VR, 3D figures showing different structures like the heart, the skeleton, and the exterior of the animal. There is also a phylogenetic part showing the relationships between the different animal groups. And there is a taxonomical part dealing with placement in the natural hierarchy of nature.
If you do a real dissection, if you make one mistake, you can't go back and start all over again. You have to continue, or you have to interrupt your dissection. But if you use Digidis, you can go back and forward however you want, and you can work with it by yourself. I think it's very good.
It allows for unlimited repetition, and it also allows you to do direct comparisons between different animals, compare the histology between different groups. As it now is, the histology course is usually separated from the morphology course, which means that first you study the histology and might not even know what kind of organ you're looking at. And then a couple of months later you will see the actual organ. Here you see it all at the same time, which I see as a big advantage.
Within biological science education, there are several species of vertebrate that are used regularly for teaching anatomy and physiology. At the University of Portsmouth in England, media producers and biology teachers have combined their skills and resources to produce video film of professionally performed dissections. These vertebrate dissection guides feature the dogfish, the frog, the pigeon, and the rat. Each 50-minute video from the series investigates one of these species. The videos use high-resolution photography, color overlays, and 3D animated graphics to teach the anatomy and evolutionary significance of the vertebrate under study. The videos begin with the external features of the animal. To progress onto the internal structures, the animal is first prepared for dissection. The student is then guided through the different stages of the practical by a narrator. For each species, there is a detailed investigation of the digestive, urinogenital, circulatory and other systems. The narrator identifies the organs and surrounding structures and describes their functional relationships.
The two lobes of the liver anteriorly, the kidneys and testes become apparent, lying below the dark red spleen and the cut end of the stomach, where the alimentary...
The motivation behind the production of the vertebrate dissection guides was to improve the student understanding of comparative anatomy. Teachers have found that this video resource can often provide more information than the dissection itself. It also offers students the freedom of choice over their preferred learning style, creating a better learning environment.
My name is Siri Martinsen, and I'm a veterinary student, third year veterinary student at a veterinary college in Norway. As a veterinary student, I have to have knowledge about how animals look inside. One way of doing that is, of course, dissection. Animals are killed for dissections, but I don't think it has to be that way. You can also use naturally dead animals, which I did in my studies. A solution is to call animal owners and ask them if they could give you the animals that die naturally. That way I got both horses and cows for dissection. It's a very good solution for veterinary colleges who want to use naturally dead animals, is to link up with veterinary clinics, both for small and large animals. And so I brought the animals to the pathology department. It's important that it's a non-infectious disease or an injury. And then I did the dissections on the ethically sourced animals. The use of animal for dissection is actually the most common harmful use of animals in education, both in biology and veterinary medicine, and also in many other fields. They use killed animals for dissections. So starting to use naturally dead animals is really one of the most important ways of decreasing the number of animals killed for education, I think.
The coconut is like an artificial animal made of different kind of plastics, silicone and like that, to give it a feeling of a real rat. So the first thing you have to train a rat is to hold it in a proper way. And that is easily shown on the coconut. You learn how to grip the skin around the neck, close to the ears, 2 fingers, and then with the rest of the finger on the palm, grip the rest of the skin. The next thing we used to train is how to feed the rat by a catheter. The students can experience that if you, with a catheter, follow the back of the mouth, it will more or less automatically go down to the stomach. And this transparent part of the rat, there you can clearly see if you have placed the catheter in a proper way. There you can see the trachea and the esophagus and the stomach. Then, maybe most important, we used to train intravenous injection in the tail vein. And you can more or less clearly, as on a real rat, see the lateral tail veins. And when you think you have found them, you can start training the injection, and you can train and train and train again. I know that in Sweden, at least, they used it for veterinarian students. And if they haven't seen it before or haven't heard about it, they find it a little bit funny. But for sure they like it.
I'm Tannetje Koning. I'm living in the Netherlands. I studied veterinary medicine in Utrecht. I finished my studies in '94 and immediately afterwards bought this practice in Zeewolde. I think you can become a perfect vet without doing any animal experiment. You can use animals that are put to death because you can't heal them. a lot of experiments you can replace in this way. I think even surgery you can learn better from a veterinarian than from doing an animal experiment, because then you see the whole surgery, the whole operation, and you see the animal recover. At that time I was studying, I wasn't really sure whether I would want to be a veterinarian or not. If they would have forced me to do animal experiments, it wouldn't just be worth the cost. I would have stopped. I think that if you do animal experiments, you care less about animals. I think you will be acting differently towards other animals, and maybe towards people too. So I think it's harmful to do animal experiments. You're not as respecting to animals as you should be.
I built a course which would give good physiological knowledge and experience without using animal experiments. So to me, the norm is the course without animal experiments, because it's not necessary. There are so many ways of demonstrating physiological principles, so you do not need animal experiments, really.
As far as I can see, I can't find any disadvantage with the alternatives. I mean, if there was anyone, I wouldn't pick up the alternative. I wouldn't replace a good old animal experiment with something that wasn't that good.
There's no question that students learn effectively using alternative methods. There are close to 20 published studies in the academic literature that I'm aware of that compare the performance of students using alternatives with those using traditional animal-based methods. These studies have found that students using the alternatives learn as well as, and in some cases actually better, than the students using animals.
You must remember that in education it's a question of teaching knowledge that's already known. It's not a question of finding new knowledge. And it's also a question of letting students do things with their own hands and detect things themselves. But it's always things that are known in the end. And therefore, it's not necessary to have animals involved at all.
We also need to question the kind of message we're sending to students when animals are harmed in educational settings. It's a sad irony that whereas the laboratory equipment we use is valued and is reused, the animals are treated as throwaway objects and thrown into the garbage at the end of the exercise. That's very disturbing in my mind, given that one of the fundamental tenets of life science education is to teach respect for life.
Well, the European Convention states very clearly that only those students who need animal experimentation for their coming profession should take part in that kind of courses. So ordinary students who not intend to use it for their coming profession should have alternatives only.
Interniche is the European Humane Education Network, working with students to support freedom of conscience and with teachers to introduce alternatives to animal experiments.
We go out to universities or to seminars and demonstrate alternatives ourselves. There's also a possibility to get a hands-on experience of the different alternatives by visiting our conferences.
There's a lot of different people involved in the network. People come from many different angles, but Interniche tries to be the melting pot to allow discussion about humane education. There's a lot of people who are actually students objecting to animal experiments, teachers who have developed alternatives, or anyone interested who's coming along to see what alternatives there are to harmful animal use.
Interniche mainly works by disseminating information on alternatives, students' rights and legislation.
We feel it's important that student-teacher conflict is minimised, and so we would encourage students to talk to the teacher to find out about the teaching objectives of any practical, and then to look into the alternatives or combination of alternatives that could replace that animal use.
Today there is a wide range of alternatives available, and if you combine different teaching aids using different approaches, you get a high-quality humane education which fully meet all the teaching objectives.
The Interniche Alternatives Loan System is a collection of different alternatives which can replace harmful animal use, and we developed this system to enable teachers and students to borrow and familiarise themselves with the different products that are available.
Interniche has produced a book called From Guinea Pig to Computer Mouse, which is a reference guide for about 400 alternatives. It gives details on practical applications, specifications and source.
We encourage teachers to contact Interniche if they have questions about particular animal practicals and what alternatives or combination of alternatives could replace them. So to that end we offer an alternatives advisory service, and we also have literature and a website which can provide further information on these issues.